Hi, welcome back to Introduction to Programming. This is Unit 1, Module 1, Lesson 4, called It's Alive. So in this project, we're going to explore some animation. To make that happen, animation is looping through a series of different pictures. So think of the comic books that have a slight change in the image, and you flip through that comic book, and then you see the pictures change as you go through page by page. We're going to do something very similar. We're going to do that by changing the costumes or the backdrops to create animation and then writing code so it flips through those different pages one at a time. So the first thing we need to do is create a sprite. So you can either upload a picture or find a sprite to work with. Once you've created that sprite, we need to go ahead and duplicate that sprite so we have a second copy of it. Then we want to modify it and repeat until you get the action that you want. However, you need to be careful that you have your animations so they're circular. You want to make sure that your animations will be able to start where they are stopped and stop where they're started, which means that, for example, if my cat was opening and closing its eye, it needs to look normal. It can't be eye open and then eye half closed and then eye open again. It doesn't work. Or eye open, eye half closed, eye closed, and then just fully open. It kind of misses a stage there. So you want to make sure that you cycle it around properly so that it looks like a natural animation. So that way when you loop it, it's going to be circular. So you can keep doing the same thing over and over again. So that way you get the animation that you really want. So once you have your animated sprite, your two different costumes, there's a couple different ways to get your animation to occur. First, we could do when green flag is clicked, we can have a forever loop that just switches to the next costume. It goes one costume after another costume after another costume, and it waits 0.25 seconds between each costume change. Now you have to wait a quarter of a second or so for a costume change because the human eye can only perceive animation at about 30 frames per second. So if you wait no time at all, then the animation won't look like anything has happened. It'll just look like it's sitting there on one costume. Whereas if you put in too much time, the animation will be really slow. I found 0.25 seconds works pretty well. The other thing you could do is use the when sprites clicked animation. Maybe you have more than one sprite on there and you want to control the animations. That way you click on different sprites and different animations occur. Or you could have a repeat such that it's only repeating a certain number of times. Let's say it only repeats 10 times and the animation stops, rather than repeating forever. And then finally, as I move my head over here, you could have it specifically switch to certain costumes. And this is that idea of the circular animation. We want to be able to control the order in which things happen. So rather than having to do multiple images that are the same, so that way when we loop through, it loops through properly, what we can do is just in code tell the computer which costume to switch to. So we switched from cat 2 to cat 3 and then cat 2 and then switch back to cat 2, so that way we're ready to go on the cat 3. So you can pick and choose how you want that animation to work by targeting very specific costumes. So that's the switch costume to cat method. The other thing we want you to do is to animate the backdrop. You're going to do this the same way. You're going to choose a backdrop and then you're going to go through and you're going to change some of the picture. So maybe black out some of the windows. So that's kind of what I did in the 3 different nightscapes. I just changed which windows were visible and which windows were not. And you can duplicate each one. If you duplicate this one, make sure that you've continued the same animations. That way when you go back to the top, it goes back to the original and it doesn't look like lights are magically appearing out of nowhere. It should twinkle when we're all done. So we have a nice forever loop here. We're waiting 0.1 seconds. We're going to make this happen a little faster. And we're going to just flip from next backdrop. Whereas when we're talking about a sprite, it's next costume. We can also do the same thing with the backdrops that we did with the costumes and target a specific backdrop. It doesn't just have to be next backdrop. So when you're all done, you can make it react upon key presses, repeat until key presses. You can have it fly across the screen if it's some type of animal. Rather than just blinking or moving, you can actually have it fly or move across the screen with the animation. And that's how you kind of get the action of a character walking across the screen, where it switches from costume to costume and it moves a little bit and it waits a little bit and then switches back to another costume. So you want to take a look at that and do some real animation that way as well. So to show you an example, here is the blinking cat animation. You can see that the cat's eye is winking. And you can see in the background we have all of the lights flashing on and off. And it produces a nice little animation. So that's what your project is. Work on It's Alive, and you're going to go into Blackboard and submit it, just like we did before. In the submission post, please make sure you share it. If you would like to share it in the studios and see what other people have done, you can click on the link to the It's Alive studio. And you can see some of the other projects that other people have worked on and take a look. So let's take a look. The Mortal Wombat. Let's see what that looks like. Press up on the arrow keys and press spacebar. Enjoy. It's our directions here. So up on the arrow keys. Let's hit green flag. Looks like it's making different sounds. It doesn't seem like it's doing much animation, so we could look inside this script to see what they did wrong. It looks like it's all sounds. And when the sprite is clicked, oh, so they tell us that in the directions. So now we're going to go back, and I'm going to click on the sprite, and I can see, there it goes, my bird is flying across the scene. And you can see it's actually changing costumes back and forth down here. So that's another thing. Make sure your directions are clear on your home page so people understand what is actually going on. That's it for our lesson today, and I'll see you next time. Make sure you submit that.